Hey Hodies, welcome back to my channel. My name is hautemesstom and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we are going to be doing a first impression of the Glaminatrix Nocturnal Palette. If you are new to my channel is all about loving my makeup collection as it currently is, being critical of new makeup releases, and then every now and then I do decide to buy something. But I also have a budget for review. And a lot of my subscribers were very interested in my thoughts and opinions on the formula from Glaminatrix, which is why I purchased this. But if this kind of content sounds good to you, regularly using the things that I already have and love, I would love to have you subscribe. Make sure you like this video before you leave it, and I'm also on patreon.com if you would like to support me there. Thank you to all of my beautiful patrons for making reviews like this happen. A little disclaimer before we jump into things here. Whenever I do a first impressions video, I like to just remind you that this is in fact a first impressions video. Also, I don't know how much longer this particular palette's going to be available from Glaminatrix. I have a past with this palette in particular that we'll discuss in a little bit. When I talk about this product, will not be able to tell you how well it wears in this video. I won't be able to tell you how it makes me feel after today. The most important things to me whenever I am using an eyeshadow palette or any makeup product in general is how much do I want to continue using it after it, and how much do I actually end up grabbing it to use it after my initial use of it. So this is going to be informative in the way you're going to see how it performs in one video. You're going to see how the shades that I choose to use today do perform. I'm not one of those people who does like one eye look and then another eye look, and there's nothing wrong with that. What I think is more important is that how much you see me use this in my videos going forward, and when I come back to report on it with my more final thoughts, that's like the more important information. But today we're gonna have fun, we're gonna craft a look, I'm gonna get to know this a little bit, and so will you vis-a-vis me, and I'm gonna try my best to explain how the eyeshadows are working for me. Don't take this as like the be-all end-all review. This is my first time using this, and so I just need you to keep that in mind as I continue throughout this first impressions. So why did I choose to review the Nocturnal Palette? Well, if you've been here for some time, I have a kind of a history with this particular palette. I have been interested in Glaminatrix for a while. Whenever they released the You Beauty the first time, I was like enamored with that color story. I thought it was incredibly beautiful, and it just felt like Glaminatrix was doing something very special when it came to their eyeshadow color stories. And I really appreciate that because they kind of do like pretty off the wall color stories. And then the next thing that they sneak peeked was this palette. And I think they sneak peeked it in 2021. At the time that this was getting sneak peeked, I was on a no buy. And then when the full color story was revealed, I duped the vibes of it, but I didn't actually. I just had made my own grungy color story. I will link that up in the cards below. Yeah, I'll just link that up in the cards below. It's like an old video. I like made this palette and I used it all of the time. And something I like to do before I buy an eyeshadow palette, if I'm buying it for myself, which I'm not really interested in eyeshadow palettes for my personal purchases at this time, I like to dupe it and see if that color story is something that I will use enough to warrant a whole palette to be dedicated to it, because oftentimes I get bored of a color story relatively quickly. And I also have so many beautiful single eyeshadows that I certainly don't use enough. So being able to like put those into rotation and play with those for a little bit of time is also really fun for me. Then when this palette launched, I was gonna pick it up, and it launched on the day that I saw Marina, formerly Marina and the Diamonds, on her Ancient Dreams in a Modern Land tour, which I was so excited to go to, but it launched like at the time I needed to be at the concert. I had paid for like early admission, so I had to be there at a different time than other people. It got lost in the sauce whenever I was like in the middle of getting ready for that concert. It was a big deal. I didn't buy it then, and then they have done a couple of restocks since. I thought that everyone would probably be over it. When last month I asked, I was like, so I'm gonna be reviewing things starting in the new year. So many people asked me to review this palette, so all of the stars have aligned. And again, I just wanna reiterate, I know this is the last restock of this, but I do think it's still in stock as I currently talk about it. So I just want you to be aware of that as we progress through this. It might not be available by the time I even post this. I have no idea how much stock they have left. But hopefully my impression of this is consistent with all of their other eyeshadow palettes. And also Glaminatrix has also done the Nearly Natural palette, and that's a really beautiful neutral color story. They're kind of killing it every time. Although I didn't really like the Glamorous palette, but that's because I'm not like really into color. So before we get started, I'm going to send you to unboxing footage and swatching footage, and then I will come back and then we will start playing with the palette.
Yeah. No. No. No.
So I have this in my hands and I don't know how to describe the texture of this. It kind of feels like leather. It's not quite as like fuzzy as the original Anastasia Beverly Hills, but it's texturally something that I am enjoying like running my hands across. And then the packaging on the inside is like, it's reminiscent of the Natasha Denona packaging. It has like this thick foam. These pans are in fact removable, so you can use them as single shadows if that's your thing, or if you for some reason didn't like the way that these colors were organized, you could reorganize them to make them make more sense to you. I also just want to say that I know that whenever this palette originally launched, a lot of people had problems with the shadows breaking, but as you saw in my unboxing footage, I did not have any problems with that and everything came intact. Just to show you as an example, this is the Natasha Denona Gold palette, and as you can see, it has this like foam outside and it's just very similar to this, but it is not as thick. It is a little more sleek. Kind of one of the first things I noted, I was like, I thought it was going to be a bigger palette. Thought it was going to be like physically larger, which that's not a pro or a con. I just thought it was going to be. I have a Pat McGrath Mothership nearby, so it is just slightly longer, but much thinner than a Pat McGrath Mothership palette. If you've ever interacted with one of these, just to give you a little bit of an idea of like what the size of this is. I was watching Colin, also known as Queer Bones here on YouTube, and they were talking about how they just bought one of the Sonia G Jumbo base brushes and how they had watched so many content creators say it was such a big brush and then they got it in their hands and it felt much smaller. I feel like I also have that. Like I must be larger than the average YouTube reviewer. You know, just like things don't feel as large to me. And like this feels, I don't know, pretty compact. And I think I thought the pans were going to be larger, not like much larger than this, but I guess I just thought it was all going to be bigger. Having already touched the formulas, they're a little bit drier than I was expecting. I guess I don't know. I guess I like, you know, I shouldn't have any expectations. I think the formulas that I have been working with relatively recently and the ones I've been more interested in have been much creamier. Like I like a creamier matte because I always feel like those are going to blend a little bit easier. The way I like to play with eyeshadow is mostly soft building. I find that like the Viseart and the Natasha Denona eyeshadows are like the kind of eyeshadow formulas that I really like working with. I have a feeling that when I play with these, they're gonna be the eyeshadows that are better to be packed on and then slightly blended, but we're gonna try it both ways. When I look at this palette, the things that inspire me the most are the shimmers. They're all really pretty, and in fact, they're all pretty duochromatic. I don't know how to do this on camera, but some people say that if you hold the mirror a certain way, you can see you can see the duochromes, but all of these are incredibly shifty and a lot of them were more sheer than I was expecting. So this definitely looks like a topper to me, the shade Milky Way, and it performed as such. And I thought Luna was also going to be like a fully pigmented shade and it was more of like a topper shade. But Night Vision and Constellation both have full saturation. And Constellation, whenever I first opened the palette, I thought it looked really boring. And then I swatched it and I caught all of the shifts and it was really, really beautiful. These are the kind of eyeshadow mattes that I'm pretty attracted to. These two up here are very reminiscent of the kind of eyeshadow colors that I am typically drawn to. I very much love green eyeshadow. I love when it looks swampy. That's the kind of thing that I'm into. And I think it being paired with these brighter pops is pretty interesting. So I'm really not sure like what I'm gonna end up doing for colors today. I might want to keep it simple and not overwhelm myself, but I'm also incapable of that. Like I also just think I want to get into everything. Like my inclination is almost to use the blues because, well, I just did a blue look with the Evanescence palette. Maybe I go back to my roots. Maybe we use these Murky Gurky. Oh my god, this shade's called Murky. I just noticed that. Here's a good thing to know about me. If you are watching my channel already, you already know this about me. I like don't care about eyeshadow shades. And whenever I am using eyeshadow in my typical videos, I'm never really trying to sell you the piece of makeup that I'm using. So it's like, and I'm also not trying to do a tutorial in which like I want you to feel as though you have to have the exact same shades as me. It's more of like I'm using these shadows, and if you want to build a similar look with similar shadows, then absolutely you can do that. And I don't want you to feel the need. I often often just like disregard the color names altogether. I know like some people get really, you know, they love to be able to like shout out the shade names. It's just not me. It's just not me. So I'm going to prep my eyes. For my eye prep today, I'm going to be using the Blink eyeshadow primer, and then I'm going to be setting it with a translucent setting powder from Pat McGrath. And once that's done, I'll be back and we can start putting eyeshadow on. My eyes are prepped. I've zoomed you in. I want you to be able to see how the eyeshadows are performing so you can see what they look like. My first inclination is to go into the shade Fog and kind of use it as a transition shade. That is the shade right here. I'm going to apply them how I would typically apply eyeshadows, the way I like to apply eyeshadows. First things first, I got a lot of kick up just now. The eyeshadows didn't feel soft whenever I was swatching them earlier, but the brush picked up a lot of pigment. And then when I kicked it off, it like, there was a lot of kick up. So we'll see how pigmented these are. So that's what it looks like so far. It's actually working out quite nicely the way I like to apply eyeshadow, which makes me really happy because I find that colorful eyeshadows are typically formulated to be super impactful and pigmented right where you apply it, and then like they need to be like buffed out from there. This built really beautifully. I mean, it's still a sheer application of it, but I do feel as though when you look at it in the pan, it looks the way I expect it to. It's not quite true. It's looking more yellow on my eye than it is holding on to the green that I can see in the pan, but it's still really beautiful. It's still the kind of eyeshadow color that I like playing with. So on this eye, I'm going to try doing the other method, like the packing and blending, to see what the eyeshadow looks like. So it appears to me, as you can see, this is a lot more sheer than this, but I feel like you could use them either way. Like, I feel like I'm still getting a lot of payoff doing it the way that I prefer. Like, you know, you get a lot of impact right away with this, but I still feel like I need to like take the time to blend it out. We're off to the races, I feel. So next I am going to be taking the shade Gloom, which is right next to Fog on the palette. Like, it's kind of like the darker version of this. I'm gonna tap it right on the outer corner here. I just adjusted the brightness on my camera because it was looking a lot darker than it was in person. And I wanted to give you, now it's looking a little more neon. You know, it's never gonna be like, it's never gonna be like perfect, but this looks more akin to what I feel like it looks like in person, because it was looking like this color was like incredibly dark with the prior lighting. I feel as though those blended beautifully together. Like, it's very seamless from one into the other. This packing method is going to work for both sides. I don't feel like I need like that because I just kind of like packed it on and then I blended it out. So I'm just going to do the same thing to the other eye. And I think I am going to be a little bit more dramatic, and I'm going to take some of the black shade, which is called Shadow, and I'm going to put it like just right here to see what that looks like. I think I have enough on my brush for both eyes. I don't want it to be... I'm switching to a different blending brush because I don't want to keep applying pigment. Okay, I feel like that black was like not to be messed around with. It really came to play. And even like using a softer blending brush like this, typically whenever I'm using blacks like this, it typically takes a couple times to go back and forth to like build up the pigment, and that was just instantaneous pigment. And I even kicked off the excess on the brush, but woo, we're really doing the drama today. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to take the brush that I put into Gloom. I'm gonna pick up a little bit more Gloom and just put that over top and just blend a little bit more. No, I just think that the black didn't perform the way I was expecting it to. It just kind of did a little bit more. So I want to make the blend a little more seamless. And I think adding more of the black is going to like not be helpful. It's going to just like harm it more so. Okay, that's where we are so far. Now I'm going to take the shade Obscurity, which is like a periwinkle shade, and I'm going to use that as an inner corner highlight. Oh my god, here's like, this is a real quick aside. I saw someone applying mascara and they said, I know it's more efficient to just switch hands. Do you guys switch hands when you're applying mascara? I don't. I do what I'm doing with my eyeshadow. Like I switch sides. Ooh, it's giving bug, which I really like. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I think I'm going to apply some shimmers. Like obviously I'm not going to be able to get all of these eyeshadows onto my eyes in this video, and I don't want to try to do that. So when I look, I kind of want to go against the grain. Like I think it would make the most sense to go with Constellation or Night Vision. But I kind of want to use like Luna or Dusk. Actually, Dusk is probably Dusk is this like purpley pink one. Or maybe we'll do Night Vision. You know what Night Vision kind of looks like? It reminds me of the green in the Pat McGrath Mothership 2. I'm gonna take my finger. That's how I like mostly apply shimmers like this. So I probably will try applying them with brushes, but it's just like not what I would do. But I will apply them with brushes so I can report back to you whether or not I find that these work with brushes, but not typically my preferred methodology. That's pretty. I don't know if it's like blowing my mind, but it's pretty. I'm going to apply it to the other eye. Also, I didn't apply glitter glue today, but I will probably be using glitter glue with the shimmers in the future. I have oily eyelids, and so I just want to give them their fighting shot. Here's where we are. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Luna. If I recall correctly, it was pretty sheer. Yeah, it was pretty sheer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like a fluffier brush, and I'm going to go into Luna, and I'm going to go on the outer part of my eye, and I put that over the green to give it a little more something. Although this shade is now really holding its own. Now I'm applying it with a brush. When I apply it with my finger, it's been so sheer. So that's interesting. And then what I'm going to do next is go into Milky Way, which is definitely a topper. And on the inner portion of the lid, apply that over top of the green. Kind of giving it more of a blue hue. I was hoping that it would make this periwinkle inner corner make more sense. But I think we just like have created like a whole new beautiful shade. I'm gonna take a clean blending brush and just kind of go around the edges of all that shimmer and just try to make it a little more seamless with the mattes going around it. And then I'm also going to put Milky Way over top of that periwinkle. I'm going to go off camera and then I'm going to do the rest of my makeup, and then I will come back and I will share like my initial thoughts with you. I'm back. So if you have any questions about what else happened to my face, you can check the description box down below, just if like something strikes your fancy that happened while I was gone. I did add a little bit of drop shadow, and I did go into the shade Witching Hour, which is like this deep purple. I feel like I really can't get a good sense of how that would perform on the eye because I just kind of like really just like shoved it down there and was like kind of whatever. I also changed my top, and here's why. The pink looked really weird with the eye look, and I wasn't pleased with the eye look, and then I changed my shirt, and then I was like, actually, this eye look is fierce. So, very into the eye look, but at first I was like, I don't know that I like this eye look. But let's do a little bit of reflection on first impressions. They perform beautifully. The eyeshadows perform beautifully. The mattes perform the way I prefer mattes to work. And I'm surprised by that because just typically in these colorways, it's not something I normally get. If you saw my video when I tried the Evanescence palette from Hip Dot, it was like I had to like pack those shadows and then buff them, as opposed to just like, you know, applying layer after layer to build opacity. But this worked my preferred way. And I'm kind of shocked by that, especially because of how dry the mattes felt whenever I was touching them with my finger for the swatches earlier. Art shadows tend to feel a little bit creamier. I feel like as they age, they dry out. And like Natasha Denona feels a little bit creamier. Even like her regular matte formula, I feel like feels a little bit creamier than this. These kind of felt like dusty when I put my hand in. But maybe that was just the first layer. You know, also these have traveled like for a month all the way across the world to get to me, so maybe just some of the outside world got to them, and that's why it was just like a little bit weird. But so overall, very pleased with the mattes. The black shade I need to like play around with a little bit more. I felt like it was the most stubborn of the mattes that I used, but Obscurity worked really beautifully on the inner corner. So Night Vision definitely has a duochrome to it. I felt like when I put Night Vision on, I like just wasn't getting what I wanted from it. And so that's why I ended up putting Luna and Milky Way on top, because I just like wanted it to feel more special. And I think that both of them did that. So this is definitely the sheerest shimmer, the shade Milky Way. And it's like, you know, there's not really a good way to catch it because it's like on top of a bunch of stuff, but it's really, really pretty. And Luna looks really cool on the outer corner, kind of blending from the black up into the green shade of Night Vision. But I like how wet my eye looks. I think I still need some time to talk about how I feel about these shimmers. I guess what I was expecting was something like, I guess, much more impactful than I ended up getting. We're obviously going to do an eye for an eye with this palette to see what I have in my collection. I think I get, you know, you see sparkly things on the internet and you just think that, not that these aren't texturally satisfying, I guess I just thought they were going to have like a little bit more of a variation in like shimmer size, and I think that would feel cool to, like, I think I would like that. But what I do like about them is that they are textural. So none of these shimmers are like a smooth shimmer. None of them are like the Cliona stained glass multichromes where it's like you put it down and it's like not flat, but like it's like there's not texture in it. It's just like looks like an oil slick. That's a little bit different. I really like whenever there's like particles you can see whenever like the light catches it. I'm gonna change the lighting to come from one direction and zoom you in so you can like see all the bits and pieces of all the particles, because like that's really satisfying. So you see how like there's just so much beautiful texture in these. I was expecting a little bit more texture. So like this is really pretty, but I was expecting just like a little bit more. But you can also see the shifts a little bit better in some of the shades and like getting all of that picked up. Here's another thing I would like to say. With this color story, it reminds me, and this is not a read. This isn't like, I'm not saying that's like copying. It reminds me a lot of Subculture. Whenever I had Subculture, because you have like these green and yellow shades and then you have like these purples and blues. There weren't really blues in Subculture, but I think there was a teal. It's been a while since I've had that palette, and I really liked that palette, and that's why I probably was really attracted to this. I think that you're gonna run into some issues if you start trying to blend the wrong shades together, because like this plus Gloom, you might get that gray. The big complaint that happened with Subculture was like, well, first of all, the formula was very soft and like you could get to the pan really easily. But the second thing is people were having trouble blending because of colors. If you are interested in this kind of color story, but you're not really ready to play with color, I think this would be a hard color story to get your mind around and to play around with. Even when I was playing with it, I was like, I don't even know if this looks good. And I do think it looks good now, but I think it was a matter of like my pink top kind of like clashing with everything. And I was like, I think I just need to change my shirt, because as I was doing the rest of my makeup, I was like, I do like this. So once I changed from pink to black, I was like, here's what we were missing. So I'm excited to continue playing with it. I want to do some like more simple looks where I like don't put as much, but I also want to continue and like maybe do some more structured looks, not so much like blown out. So I do want to get to know this better. I'm really curious about these textures being put on top of a glitter glue as well, to see like what that would look like. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm looking forward to playing with Murky on the eyes. Nightfall, I think, is like the one shade in here where I'm just like, I don't know that I like you. I mean, I see its purpose. I see its use. Yeah, everything applied really beautifully. I have no complaints. I'm also not like wowed. You know, I guess that's like kind of really what it is. Like the mattes definitely performed much better than I was expecting them to. But like not my favorite mattes I've ever used, and the shimmers are really, really beautiful, but that versus like the collection of eyeshadows that I have, I don't feel like wowed. You know what I mean? Like it's just like I don't feel like, and this isn't a read. Glaminatrix isn't doing anything that I haven't gotten from another indie brand, but I think if it's your first indie brand, I think you would be like really, really impressed with this. So yeah, it's fun. And if you're into indie shadows and you haven't tried Glaminatrix and you like to have a variety, I think that you would also get a lot of value out of something from them. But for me personally, so far, it's like, this is really pretty, but I think in the eye for an eye, we're gonna really easily prove that I think the only shades I'm gonna have trouble duping are probably gonna be this periwinkle, this green, and this blue. But I think the rest of this palette, I think I'm going to like easily find something in my collection. But also, if I were to be honest with you, the shades that I would be least likely to use in my personal use would be those shades, like not this one. I think I'm gonna really like playing with that one, but this one and this one and this one, those are probably gonna be the shades that I would play with the least anyway. So that's my first impression thoughts. Like I said, I don't want you to take this and run away with it and think that's the be all end all way that I feel about this. I still need to spend time with it, and so you're gonna see it in other videos, probably in some Let's Play with makeups. You're gonna see it on my eyes, whether or not I have put on the eyeshadow. So yeah, I'm not done playing with it. Maybe I will love it. Maybe there will be a time where I come around and I'm just like, yes, absolutely. And I'm not saying this to be cynical, and it's nothing against Glaminatrix. Like, I really don't want you to think that. It's just like, I just think that, you know, when I think about like conscious consumerism, when I think about like trying to find things that add value to my collection, I just don't think that if you have a bunch of other indie shadows that like, this is going to do it. But I did see that Glaminatrix is just releasing holographic eyeshadows. And I was like, I certainly have never touched anything like that. So they are still out here innovating. I just, you know, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, they're really pretty, but it's also like nothing I haven't seen before. And at this point in like my makeup journey, it's like, I really want something to kill it so bad, like kill it so hard that I'm like absolutely smitten with it. And it's just like, I really liked this so far, but it's like, again, give me a month. Give me 2 months and I will report back to you and be like, I really love this, or I feel exactly the same way that I do. And I can't tell you that right now. I would lie to you and say that I don't always edit in the dark like this, but that's a lie. But I did want to throw one more thought in before the video ends, and it is the following. I hope that you can gather from this that buying this eyeshadow palette, even though I bought it for review, this is an eyeshadow palette that I have lusted over for a long time, right? If it's now, we're at least 1.5 years, maybe going on 2 years, because I remember them sneak peeking it while I was in my no buy, which was the last half of 2021. That this did not satisfy anything. Like I was even talking about it in the video, like nothing. And this is speaking for me and my makeup collection personally. I'm not saying that this is the exact thing for you, but for me and my makeup collection, the way that it currently is, I already have things that I find so beautiful that this, while it is very beautiful and it works very well and it does all of the things that I could have asked for it to do in this first impressions video, it just didn't do anything that all the other eyeshadows in my collection can't do. That's what the eye for an eye really is setting out to prove. But you can see here in the end thoughts that I just am like, yeah, it's like, it's good. I know things that are like this. And so therefore I have to think about it like, if as a person who owns makeup, does this add value to my collection? And I just think at this juncture, it doesn't. But it doesn't mean it's a bad product. It just means that it's just the fantasy of it and the reality of it being in front of me were two different things. Because if I had bought it, like if not during my no buy, or if I hadn't gone to the Marina concert and I bought this in real time when it initially launched, I would have gotten it and I would have felt the exact same way. But over time, I have been using this muscle to discern what kind of makeup I want to bring into my life, which is why I only ended up buying this for review, for the purposes of being able to give information about how it feels to interact with it, and not something that I purchased with like my own personal budget. Because if I bought it with my personal budget, the feeling would have been more disappointment rather than this is really good and I can acknowledge that it's very good. I think my mindset on it would feel a lot different if I bought this for just like my personal use. Let me conclude the video for you. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to see how things turn out with this palette, the best way to do that is to subscribe. And if you just enjoyed the vibe here, I would just really appreciate you subscribing. Liking this video would be the best way to help me. But if you do want to help me in another way, I'm also on patreon.com and you can support me there or not, whatever you want to do. There's like no pressure to do that. But just know that I appreciate you all so much. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.